Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to the Telegraph debate. It's only in Calcutta that you'll see a crowd like this for a debate, and it always reminds me of how I love Calcutta and why I love Calcutta. As some of you may know, I used to live in Calcutta for many, many years. It was where I got my first break as a journalist. Thanks to ABP, thanks to Sarkar, who I'm seeing, who I assume is sitting somewhere over here. And thank you to the Sarkar family as a whole, who were, and I imagine still are, the best employers any journalist could ever hope for. And what they've done with the Telegraph, I think, is astonishing. Satyadev, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a real pleasure and a privilege. Okay, I think you know what the debate is about. The motion is, in the opinion of this House, the status quo has been the unmaking of West Bengal. Is Bengal unmade? Are you made? We'll have to debate that. What is the status quo? The status quo is now. Is the status quo the last 10 years? Is it the last 50 years? Our speakers will tell us where they stand on that. I suspect what you're going to end up getting is a vaguely political debate with the BJP on one side and the TMC on the other side, though I have to say our speakers deny this and say it'll be highly intellectual and ideas-based. We'll see. But before we go any further, let me introduce our speakers. The first speaker to propose the motion is a person who needs no introduction. You see him on television every night. He's an MP from Orissa. What you may not know is that he's a doctor by training. He has a master's degree in surgery, and he shifted from being a very, very successful doctor to being a very, very successful politician. Please welcome Sambit Patra. Our second speaker is Mr. Samik. I'm sorry, I'm going to screw up all the Bengali names. I'm very sorry. I'm a Gujarati. I don't really know them. Not that this side is unused to listening to Gujaratis, but even so, I'll try my best. The second speaker is Samik Bhattacharya. He's a senior BJP leader from the party's West Bengal unit. He's in fact the president and a member of the Rajya Sabha. He is a veteran RSS worker, and he registered his first electoral success in 2014 by winning a by-election which elected him to the assembly. Mr. Bhattacharya. Hi, come. Our next speaker is a technologist and a faculty member at the Shah Institute of Nuclear Physics, an autonomous institution under the Department of Atomic Energy. Please welcome Dr. Jisnu Basu. Final speaker on this side of the motion is an old colleague of mine from ABP, who's now found fame as a politician, is one of India's finest columnists, has been a member of parliament, still writes for the Telegraph, among many other papers. Please welcome Swapan Dasgupta. Let me introduce the other side. Let me introduce a social and peace activist, educator, writer, theater actress, and a public speaker. She's raised across different parts of India, but she's always considered herself a Bengali from Calcutta, she told me. Please welcome Saira Shah Halim. Okay, now I think we have the first of the, on this side, the Presidency College Mafia. Let me introduce an economist from Presidency College who did a master's degree from the University of Calcutta, then a PhD from the University of Rochester. He's had a great academic career. Please welcome Dr. Abhirup Sarkar. Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce one of the stars of this debate. On the other side, a celebrated historian, a grandnephew of Netaji, also from Presidency College and the University of Cambridge. He's been one of the best-known academics and most respected people in Calcutta. Please welcome Professor Sugata Bose. And finally, on this side, a senior advocate based in Delhi, among the most respected figures in India's legal community, born into a family of famous lawyers in Calcutta. Please welcome Jaideep Gupta. I need to tell you a bit about the rules of this debate, which is, sorry, are you going to take over? Okay.
Yes, before we really start today, we'd like to honor and felicitate all of you all on stage.
Okay.
After which we'll have a small little group photo. So for felicitation, on behalf of the Telegraph, I'd like to call on Devdan Mitra, the editor of the Telegraph. And on behalf of Calcutta Club, I'd like to call on Madam Kasturi Raha, the president of Calcutta Club, to kindly do the honors of felicitating our speakers and our moderator. Thank you. And after the felicitation, sirs, we'll have a small little group photograph. Post that, we will be starting our debate for the evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is just the beginning of the felicitation. We've got something amazing also coming up, and Devdan Das is going to do the honors. Ladies and gentlemen, Calcutta is known for its sportsmanship and loud claps. Could we have a big round of applause to the amazing speakers on stage tonight? They truly deserve all the energy. Well, we have all the photographers ready to make their clicks away. Ladies and gentlemen, once again a big hand to our distinguished panel and of course our amazing moderator. Over to Mr. Sanghvi. Sir, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm actually going to come and stand there. Hi, sorry, I'm just more comfortable standing and talking. Okay, the format is we have 4 speakers on each side. We're going to give them 10 minutes to speak. At 8 minutes, our timekeeper will ring a bell to ask them to wind up. At 10 minutes, she'll ring a final bell and hope that they've wound up. If people have not wound up, she will keep ringing the bell to drown them out so they'll have to wind up. Yeah? So that's basically the way in which we'll do this. At the end of the debate, we'll ask one member of each team, who you can call the captain, the leader, they've used various terms, to come and sum up the debate. But before we do that, I had an idea. You know the motion. The motion is the status quo has been the unmaking of West Bengal. I'll take a vote at the end, but I just want to know how many minds are going to be changed. So I'm going to ask you, all those who believe in the motion that the status quo has been the unmaking of West Bengal, put your hands up. Okay, it's a lot. You might as well have already won. Okay. And all those against the motion who believe that Bengal has not been unmade and that the status quo has not been responsible for it, put your hands up. Okay, so it's clear which side this audience is on. Let's see if we can change any minds as the debate goes on. So shall we start? Can I ask Swapan Dasgupta to propose the motion?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's always a great pleasure to be able to speak at the Calcutta Club debate. And this has been doubly so because the topic is very relevant, contemporary, and I believe contentious. Now, one of the pitfalls of coming to this debate today was that I missed out on something rather important which has been happening in Delhi for the past few days, which is the AI Summit. It's a very important event, partly because AI threatens to disrupt the social fabric, it threatens to disrupt the economy, and it promises to open up new challenges, some of which are unknown as yet. It's not that India is in the leadership role of AI, but one of the reasons why the summit is being held in Delhi is that to familiarize people in India of the opportunities and threats which are being posed by this huge scientific disruption. And to my mind, that's a very important step which is being taken in Delhi. Now I come to West Bengal and I look at the headlines. They present a study in contrast. The preoccupation here is whether someone was called Bonkim Babu or Bonkim Da. The preoccupation here is whether it should have been Thakur Ramakrishna or Swami Ramakrishna. The study in contrast is very apparent. What I think it suggests is that, if I can lapse into Bangla once in a while, আমাদের নিজেদের মানসিক গণ্ডিটা কত ছোট করে ফেলেছি. How much we've reduced our horizons, our mental horizons. It's gone down exponentially from what we were to what we are. And this is a process of insularity which has been gathering pace for at least 50 years. When we say status quo, what does it mean? It basically means not that nothing has moved, but the pace of our movement is inadequate to keep up with the pace of change. And let me give an example of what Bengal has deemed to be its priorities. We just heard a few days ago a budget. And in that budget, science and technology was given an outlay of 82.3 crores. Technical education and skill development was given a little more, 1464 crores. But these were completely overwhelmed by what West Bengal thinks it's a priority. Minority affairs and madrasa education was given 5,713 crores. So while where there is AI on one hand, there is madrasa education on the other hand. That is what I mean. The refusal to move, that is the case of the status quo. And is there any wonder, therefore, that the most exciting thing which people suggest is happening in West Bengal is that youth unemployment is now being sought to be countered not by training people, not by familiarizing themselves with the new challenges, but by giving them a little sop, which will take up around 27 lakh youth will somehow be propitiated. Now, look at it in this way. The future of this state. There are nearly 4,000 schools in West Bengal which don't have a single teacher. This accounts for nearly 50% of all the teacherless schools in India. In the rest of India, 70% of the schools have internet connectivity. In West Bengal, it is 15%. We are so wedded to the status quo that we refuse to accept change even as something as modest as internet connectivity. So while the rest of India is talking about Pax Silica, here we are talking about Pax Madrasa. That is the basic difference which is happening with the rest of India. And that is why this is the status quo, which is undermining the basic eating into the vitality of this state. This is the reason why, over the past 15 years, some 6,668 companies have moved out of the state. Because you refuse to move ahead with the times. You're still stuck in some distant and some elusive notion of progressivism, which is actually the epitome of everything that is reactionary. There's a circus going on in Bengal. And every year that circus takes place, and we say people are coming to invest in droves. We even had the chief minister going to Spain, catching hold of some local manager and said, oh, Zara is going to come and set up a factory in Bengal. We had them catching hold of some other sales manager and said, British Airways is having a direct flight. You've lowered yourself to that level. You've had commitments, so-called, at 21 lakh crores, supposedly in these great summits which have taken place. And at the end of the day, what has happened? You've only had 3% of that commitment actually being fulfilled. Bengal at one time led India. There was a close competition between Kolkata and Bombay about which is the bigger city. And from there, what have we come down to? Today, we are 21st in the league. 21st in the league. If you look at the state domestic product, Gujarat has 2.06 per capita, 2.06 lakhs per capita, and West Bengal is 84,000. Now that's the level of the fall. And that's the level of the fall. There was a song which has become suddenly popular. Nochiketar ekta গান ছিল, তুমি আসবে বলে দেশটা এখনো গুজরাট হয়ে যায়নি. So you can see why it hasn't. It's not that anything else. Gujarat has gone from here to there, and we've come from there down. And that is a result of this unwavering belief that you don't have to change. You're superior. You know everything. But this is not the quintessential Bengal we know. Bengal has always been at the forefront of change, of dynamism, of entrepreneurship. It got derailed somewhere along the process. I hope in the coming days, we somehow rediscover our mojo. We recover that self-esteem which is lost, and we put a final end to the specter of progressivism and this false sense of vanity which has overcome us. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Swapan. That was brilliant. If the BJP wins the election, they should make you chief minister. That was really okay. Let me go to the. By the way, Swapan is the leader stroke captain of this team, so you will hear him again when he sums up at the end of the thing. Let me now ask the first speaker, Sugata Bose, to speak from the other side, opposing the motion.
সভাপতি মহাশয়, সুধীবৃন্দ, আজ 21শে ফেব্রুয়ারি। আমার ভাইয়ের রক্তে রাঙানো 21শে ফেব্রুয়ারি আমি কি ভুলিতে পারি? 1952 সালের 21শে ফেব্রুয়ারি বাংলা ভাষার মর্যাদা রক্ষার সংগ্রামে যারা প্রথম শহীদ হয়েছিলেন তাদের নাম একবার উচ্চারণ করা প্রয়োজন। রফিকুদ্দিন আহমেদ, আবুল বরকত, আব্দুল জব্বার, আব্দুস সালাম এবং তার পরদিন শফিকুর রহমান এবং তার সঙ্গে আরও অনেকে। নামগুলো একটু মন দিয়ে শুনেছেন আশা করি। আমাদের এই শহরের এক ঐতিহ্যবাহী বাংলা পত্রিকার সহোদর ইংরেজি খবরের কাগজ দ্য টেলিগ্রাফ আজ ক্যালকাটা ক্লাবে এই বিতর্ক সভার আয়োজন করেছে। অতএব মাতৃভাষার প্রতি এবং শহীদদের স্মৃতির প্রতি শ্রদ্ধা জানিয়ে আমি মূলত বিদেশি ভাষাতেই আমার বক্তব্য রাখছি। Mr. Chairman, we obviously start at a disadvantage. You took a vote before the debate started, and the overwhelming majority seemed to believe in the motion as they understood it. We have heard from my friend Swapan exaggerated laments of the current state of West Bengal. I think the insertion of a Latin phrase in an English motion has befuddled the mover of this motion. Status quo simply means the existing state of affairs. And Swapan believes that we are living through a dismal state of affairs. But then he seems to be arguing that the existing state of affairs is the cause of the existing state of affairs. And therefore he is getting caught in a circular argument which defies all logic. He spoke about the rather sorry state of education in our state. But you know, status quo has very little to do with it. There was a change in policy, a dramatic change in policy during the 1980s, when English was abolished at the level of primary education. And that blighted the future of an entire young generation. If we had maintained our educational policy devoted to scholarly excellence, then we would not be in a position today where many young Bengalis will have difficulty in following what we are saying in English at today's debate. I would urge you, ladies and gentlemen, to take a more capacious and expansive view of status quo. Swapan mentioned Sri Ramakrishna, and he believes that we are so petty that we have been criticizing the Prime Minister for adding a wrong prefix to his name. What I would like to say to you is that the status quo, meaning status in the connotation of prestige, what has given Bengal prestige on the world stage, was established by none other than Sri Ramakrishna in the late 19th century. Of course, he was preceded by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who taught us the science of religion. But it was Sri Ramakrishna who taught us the art of God realization. Through his experiences of the beliefs and practices of different religions, he came to the conclusion, every religion is true. He did not say there is truth in every religion. He proclaimed every religion is true. And that is what struck a deep chord in the Bengali heart. And that is why I hope you will reject the stark contrast that Swapan drew between Pax Silica and Pax Madrasa. Towards the end of the 19th century, Rabindranath Tagore was the exemplar of the Ram Mohan strand of thought in Bengal, while Vivekananda was the exemplar of the Ramakrishna stream of thought in Bengal. And then something magical happened. The Irish-born disciple of Swami Vivekananda, Sister Nivedita, brought the two streams together, and they began to flow like a mighty river. Rabindranath was soon joined by another very gifted poet, Qazi Nazrul Islam. And just over 100 years ago, he composed সাম্যবাদী। গাহি সাম্যের গান, যেখানে আসিয়া এক হয়ে গেছে সব বাধা ব্যবধান, যেখানে মিশেছে হিন্দু, বৌদ্ধ, মুসলিম, খ্রিস্টান, গাহি সাম্যের গান। That is Bengal's status quo, an unbroken cultural and literary tradition that was enlightened. And that was joined by a noble political tradition crafted by Deshabandhu Chittaranjan Das and his illustrious disciple Subhash Chandra Bose. In 1923, Deshabandhu forged the Bengal Pact between Hindus and Muslims. And he also wrote a beautiful Swaraj constitution which put forward the vision of a federal and united India. And in 1929, when the Congress was adopting the resolution of Purna Swaraj, Subhash Chandra Bose put forth his stirring call of Purno Sammobad. 10 years later, in August 1939, the poet and the patriot came together in this great metropolis. If you see the photographs of that wonderful occasion, you will see Rabindranath and Subhash Chandra sitting on two chairs, Sharat Chandra Bose seated in the middle on the floor, and behind them are Humayun Kabir, Ashrafuddin Ahmed Chaudhary. And at that site, Rabindranath recited the beautiful ode to Bengal that he had composed at the time of the Swadeshi movement. And he, of course, spoke about how Bengal's brothers and sisters have all got to be united. But he also added, Bangalir Bani Bharater Bani ke Sotto Koruk. We need to follow that status quo, an unswerving commitment to equality and unity. We have already figured out the motives of the proponents of this motion. They want you to acquiesce in a change for the worse. We cannot allow Bengal to be turned into a UP with its bulldozer injustice. We cannot allow Bengal to be turned into an Assam whose chief minister spouts venom every day. He engages in hate speech every day and even more hateful actions. Bengal must remain true to its own heritage. Ladies and gentlemen, I know how you voted before we started the debate. But after hearing from our team, and Abhirup will speak about economics, Jaideep about law, Saira about politics, I hope that you will reject this motion and express your pride in Bengalese heritage. You cannot support this motion, not on this sacred day, 21 February. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. I said at the beginning that only in Calcutta could you have a debate like this, but I'll add something. Only in Calcutta could you have a debate where somebody began in fluent Bengali and then shifted effortlessly to Cambridge English, and the audience appreciated both. I think that's the magic of Calcutta. Okay, one more speaker from the side supporting the motion. Can I ask Dr. Basu, Jisnu Basu to speak?
I'd like to express my sincere thanks to the Telegraph for organizing this important debate on the auspicious day of Bhasha Diwas. My heartfelt thanks to Professor Sugata Basu for quoting from Abdul Ghaffar Chaudhary, Amar Bhaiyer Rokte Rangano 21 February, Ami ki bhulite pari. Unfortunately, for last couple of years, world is witnessing the unmaking of the legacy of Bhasha Andolan. Every time a Hindu girl is raped, a Dipu Das is burned alive, the Kachari Bari of the ancestral house of Rabindranath is vandalized, Indira Gandhi Cultural Center is set ablaze. We listen the snap of unmaking of our childhood dream, Bangladesh. I hope the new government would take care and they will try to repair this situation. But nevertheless, the facts and figures of the other side of the border is very much important in today's discussion, as because the West Bengal was constituted as to provide the safe place of Hindu Bengalis. In 1947, when the inclusion of Bengal in Pakistan was almost certain, Bengali stalwarts like Professor Meghnad Shah, Sir Jadunath Sarkar, under the leadership of Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, they initiated the movement to have a safe place for Bengali Hindus. And in 20th June 1947, West Bengal was constituted and the Bengali Hindus got a safe place inside the dominion of India. So, unmaking of West Bengal is actually erasing the last refuge of Bengali Hindus from the subcontinent. This is not merely ethnic cleansing of Bengali Hindus. This is actually the unmaking of a complete civilization. The civilization which had been crafted in last millennium. What was Bengal? It was সকল দেশের রানী সেজে আমার জন্মভূমি, বঙ্গ আমার, জননী আমার, ধাত্রী আমার, আমার দেশ. Gangadiri kingdom, they challenge and detract Alexander the Great's invasion of India in 326 before Christian era. We've woven the finest fabric, muslin, and our blacksmiths, they forge the strongest sword, the two-sided sword. Our workers, they fabricated perfectly designed watercrafts well before the Britishers started their maritime with the wooden ships. We sent Atish Dipankar, and his voice was listened by the literate, half of the literate people of the world in his time. We composed Chorja Chorjo Binischoy, that was Bengal. So, unmaking West Bengal is actually erasing this civilization from the history. Yes, true. Status quo was in progress. Status quo is the primary requisite for good governance and for prosperity. Yet, confusing stagnation with stability would be dangerous, as because stagnant water is the breeding ground of all diseases. Here, the jihadi fundamentalists are very active in the both sides of the border, and electoral politics in West Bengal has been propelling the leading political parties to allow the Bangladeshi Muslim infiltration. In 1998, a mob of 3,000 people stopped Howrah-bound Kurla Express from Mumbai under the leadership of the then left front MLA, demanding the release of a batch of 34 Bangladeshi immigrants. And from that time, West Bengal became the safe haven of Bangladeshi terrorists and militants. Shakil Ahmed entered India in 1999. And immediately after that, he got voter card and everything with active support from ruling political party. Hundreds of Shakil Ahmed, they were engaged in making sleeper cells along the border. And then there was landslide victory of the present political party. And after the change of the power in 2011, the new government, they issued the permission to run 11,500 Khadiji madrasas without any inspection. Shimulia madrasa was one of them. Shakil Ahmed collected one Indian Muslim girl, Kausar, from Shimulia madrasa, and they started assembly unit of improvised explosive device, IED. After the Khagragor blast incident, the whole story came in public. West Bengal, the problem over here, one of my favorite Professor Abhirup Sarkar is over here. I would not go much into the economics, but I would like to tell you, sir, even after partition, West Bengal was a wealthy, industrially developed, and agriculturally rich land. We had maximum number of artisan clusters. We have a considerable good number of naturally grown rural industrial clusters. But what is the present situation? What is the status quo? The present situation is that due to the populist dole politics, these industrial clusters are increasingly suffering from the short of direct laborers, the skilled and unskilled laborer, and leading to the gradual extinction. Howrah was called as the Manchester of East. What is the situation of Howrah and the allied industries? The automotive industry in Shingur was the last hope. Due to the wildcat trade unionism, all the industries were compelled to fly away from the state. And the Shingur was the last hope. But due to unscientific land acquisition policy and a dogmatic totalitarian political approach, the project crashed. And the cultural Marxists, they took the lead role. The cultural Marxists, they have been paid with the chairmanship of the very prestigious selection committees, the membership in the both houses of parliament, but the people of Shingur, they neither got an industry nor the land for farming. Abhaya didn't return. The dead body of Abhaya is covered with a white cloth of status quo. It is upon you to decide. Vande Mataram, Bharat Mayer Joy Ho.
Thank you so much, Dr. Basu. There are some interesting economic challenges there that you put down for Abhirup Sarkar, which is probably just as well, because can I now ask Abhirup Sarkar to speak from this side.
I thank the Telegraph and Calcutta Club for giving me this opportunity to speak here. As I see it, there are two key words in this debate. One is status quo, the other is unmaking. Let's start with unmaking. Unmaking literally means reverse the making, or it can even mean break down. So in West Bengal, has there been a reversal? And the answer is yes. In what sense? In 1947, just after independence, Bengal was an industrial leader, only second to Bombay, which included at that time both Maharashtra and Gujarat. At the same time, agriculture was very weak, stagnant. There was this infamous Bengal famine claiming 3 to 4 million lives. In 2024-25, West Bengal, one has to admit, is lagging in industrial output behind 6 other states, including Maharashtra and Gujarat. I am quoting, all my figures are from RBI website. One report came out just a few, yesterday or day before, handbook on Indian states. I'm just quoting from that. So West Bengal, in terms of industrial output, is 7th. This is a reversal, of course. On the other hand, West Bengal now is one of the largest producers of agricultural goods. We are self-sufficient, and our production in West Bengal is greater than the agricultural production of Punjab and Haryana taken together. So we have become self-sufficient in agriculture, but we are lagging in industry. This is the reversal. Now let us come to status quo. By status quo, I will mostly mean political status quo, change of political power. Now, of course, political power hasn't changed much in West Bengal. Since 1977, there has been one single change. But what about Gujarat? There has not been any change in Gujarat since 2002. So that is also status quo. But there has not been much reversal. On the other hand, if you look at Tamil Nadu or Rajasthan, in Rajasthan during 2000 to 2025, in each election, the incumbent was voted out. In Tamil Nadu, just only one occasion, the incumbent could retain its power. There has been a reversal in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu has emerged as a major industrial state, but not much change in Rajasthan. So, statistically, there is no correlation between status quo and reversal. But then the question is, if status quo is not responsible for this reversal, why reversal? Well, in the industrial sector, the decline started when British firms started leaving India. They were getting special benefits from the government before independence, and after independence, they were not getting these favors, so they started leaving. And even the colonial structure of managing industries was outmoded, so they had to leave. And that started the industrial decline. At the same time, there was a rise of left ideology, a collective ideology of Bengal, if you may. At its extreme form, we had the Naxalites who drove a lot of industries in the 60s. And in a milder form, the Left Front, which was in power for 34 years, they produced militant trade unions, which again was responsible for driving industries. During the TMC rule, what happened? The decline has been arrested. This much we can say from the data. In 2004-05, West Bengal contributed 7.4% of all India industrial output. It came down to 4.7% in 2012-13. But it has remained there even in 2019-20. So I'm not claiming that there has been an improvement since then, but the decline has been arrested. In agriculture, the left ideology, which was kind of responsible for driving out industries, in the agricultural sector, it was responsible for building a very sound agricultural sector. There was agricultural growth in the late 80s, early 90s. There were land reforms, agricultural subsidies. All these led to sound agricultural growth. And, you know, the agricultural sector became very, very robust. Sorry. Even during the TMC rule, agricultural growth from 2012 to 20, it was 3.3%, all more than double of agricultural growth in India taken as a whole. So agriculture is very solid, industry is kind of declining. Now, the more important question, can we say that this reversal led to a breakdown? Can we call it a breakdown? And the answer is hardly so. You see, in 2024-25, this is the latest data we have, West Bengal is 6th in terms of GSDP among all the states. Both rural and urban unemployment is lower than the Indian average. It's lower than in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka. West Bengal is 6th in manufacturing. Of course, it has, it's no longer a leader, but it's 6th. It's not all that bad. On the other hand, distribution has improved. The very, the standard way of measuring inequality is the Gini coefficient. And consumption Gini and both asset holding Gini, they're much lower in West Bengal, which means that inequality is much less in West Bengal. People are always talking in terms of per capita income. Problem is, when we take great pride in projecting India as the 3rd largest economy in the world, we do not talk about per capita income. But when it comes to bashing West Bengal, we always talk about per capita income. I think it's a double standard which needs to be changed. But then again, per capita income has some problems. The population, there has not been any census since 2011. So how do we get to the per capita income figure? Moreover, prices in West Bengal are much lower than in India. So the per capita income in real terms is not all that low. Finally, West Bengal had to face a tremendous population pressure due to partition, which Punjab didn't have to face because there was a two-way traffic. In West Bengal, it was not. So such a small state with so much population pressure is bound to reduce the per capita income. But if you look at the overall GDP, West Bengal is not doing that badly. More important, there is always a trade-off between growth and distribution. The previous government as well as the present government has prioritized distribution over growth. So if we could sacrifice distribution, if you could forget about distribution, we could increase the growth rate. But that is a conscious policy choice which has been supported by the people of Bengal, and I think that has earned a lot of legitimacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarkar. You know, before this, when we were sitting waiting for the debate to start, one of our speakers was slightly delayed, and I said to my friend Devdan, the editor of the Telegraph, I said, this guy is going to be worth waiting for because I've known him since he first burst on the political scene. He's a perfect speaker. He knows his audience. He knows when to be serious, when to be funny, and he knows how to get his case across. I said he's going to be the star of the debate. So now we'll see if I'm right. Can I invite Sambit Patra to speak?
Time is the constraint, so much to speak, so less of time. So, Doyens and Excellencies, Jai Jagannath from Puri to all of you. We may debate, we may discuss. I don't know which side would win, but ultimately, let me tell you, Bengal is fast losing it. We have to save Bengal. I'll give the reasons for it as well. While I boarded the flight today, as is the habit, I grabbed the newspaper. So the headline was, Supreme Court deploys judicial officers in Bengal for SIR hearings. In an unprecedented decision, the Supreme Court of India on Friday used its extraordinary powers to deploy judicial officers in West Bengal to decide claims for the inclusion of voters in the list. The court emphasized that CM Mamata Banerjee should be aware of the consequences if the revision exercise is not concluded. Article 142 of the Constitution was invoked by the Supreme Court. लक्ष्मण रेखा को सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कूदा आज और कहा कि यदि मैं इस समय अपना वर्डिक्ट नहीं सुनाऊंगा तो यह अन्याय होगा. The Supreme Court said thus. The Supreme Court yesterday pronounced that February 28 has to be the date when the Election Commission of India has to come out with the electoral roll. Election Commission said 95% ready, 5% will come up as supplementary roll. The Supreme Court said, yes, go ahead. Mamata Banerjee objected, no sir, cannot happen. Supreme Court said, nothing doing. Kapil Sibal on the behalf of the government said, on the street, there would be law and order situation. Why? Release of electoral roll will lead to law and order situation on the streets. If this is not unmaking of a democratic Bengal, then what is unmaking of Bengal? Tell me. I'll give you the examples of unmaking of democratic Bengal. I remember I was with my co-panelists, many from Bengal in 2021. The month was May, and it was the counting day of West Bengal's last election. And horrifying scenes were visible across Bengal. 18 political murders, 170 rapes, 6,126 women molested, 2,942 villages affected, 4,105 people severely affected, houses burned and vandalized, 33,840 were rendered homeless, fled in fear, out of which 14,245 belong to the SC/ST community. 300 SC/ST villages severely affected. 1,800 people fled to the neighboring countries. All doom and all hell would have broken loose had this happened in any BJP-ruled state. But thanks to the status quo, nothing was heard of about this. But the National Commission for Human Rights, they came out with a single phrase which still is etched in my heart. And the phrase is, in Bengal exists law of ruler, instead of rule of law. Is this not breaking of democracy and unmaking of Bengal? Let me come to demographic unmaking. Why all this is happening? All this is happening because of one reason. They want to change the demography of Bengal. We may debate, we may discuss, but remember, either way, we are bound to be doomed if the demography changes. And what not has been done for that? 1947, the Muslim population of West Bengal, 12%, Hindus, 88%, 71, then East Bengal, now Bangladesh, 30% was the Muslim population. Now 2026, in Bangladesh, Hindu population was 30%. 2026, Muslim population in Bengal is 34%, 63 to 70% in some districts. 2026 Bangladesh, Hindu population mere 8%. Malda, Murshidabad, North Dinajpur, Birbhum, South 24 Parganas. I don't want to speak much, but I have a headline from November 24-25. North Dinajpur spread across 3180 square kilometers and flanked by Bangladesh and Bihar has witnessed a staggering 105.4% growth in voters in the last 23 years. The highest in Bengal, Malda 94.5% and Murshidabad 87.6%. Among the other Bengal districts bordering Bangladesh have recorded the second and the third highest voter surge during the period. If this is not unmaking of the present demographic dispensation, what is unmaking of Bengal? Tell me. The border security forces, multiple letters written to West Bengal government, please provide us with land. We want to fence and protect Bengal, but Bengal government refuses to give land. Finally, the court has to step in, and court has said that 31st of March 2026 is the last date by which Bengal government has to provide land for border fencing. This is the level of appeasement of Mamata Banerjee. And Mamata Banerjee had herself said, I quote, I appease Muslims. Yes, I appease Muslims. We'll do it 100 times, as there is no harm in taking kicks from a cow that gives milk. दूध देती हुई गाय से लात खाने में मुझे कोई दुख नहीं होता है. Yes, I will appease Muslims. In spite of this, we debate, we discuss, and we silently wait for doom. Remember, surrender has suddenly been given a new name in the dictionary, that is secularism. Secularism can never be a one-way street. And let me towards the end come to some extremely, I would say, sentimental issues. I remember, such is the appeasement here in Bengal, that I was taken aback by a video. The video was of December 20th, 2025. It was a Bengali singer, Lagnajita Chakraborty, and she was harassed by a TMC leader, Mehboob Malik, at Bhagwanpur in East Midnapur. Why? Because she was singing a song. She was about to sing a song, Jago Ma. And the crowd shouted, you have to sing secular song. So here is my answer from Birendra Krishna Bhadro, our own civilization. He Bhagavati Mahamaya, Tumi Trigunaatmika, Tumi Rajoguner Brahmar Gruhini Bhagdevi, Saptaguner Vishnur Patni Lakhi, Tamo Guner Shiver Bonita Parvati, Abar Trigunaatita, तुर्यावस्थाय तुमी अनर्वचनीया अपार महिममयी परब्रह्म महिषी देवी ऋषि कात्तायनेर कन्या कात्तायनी तिनी कन्या कुमारी अखाव दुर्गी तिनी आदि शक्ति आगम प्रसिद्ध मूर्तिधरी दुर्गा तिनी दाक्षायनी सती देवी दुर्गा निज देह संभूते तेज प्रभावे शत्रुदहन काले अग्निवर्णा अग्निलोचना ए उषाल লগ্নে হে মহাদেবী তোমার উদ্বোধনে বাণীর ভক্তিরসপূর্ণ বরণ কমলালোক শতদল মেলে বিকশিত হো দিগে দিগান্তে হে অমৃত জ্যোতি হে মা দুর্গা তোমার আবির্ভাবে ধরণ হয়ে এক প্রণময়ী জাগো 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 মা জাগো মা দুর্গা মা দুর্গা তোমাকে আসতে হবে ইউ হ্যাভ টু কাম ইউ হ্যাভ টু ম্যানিফেস্ট and you have to protect your land called Bengal. I come with a message from the land of Lord Jagannath. Vishnu also is not in favor of status quo. That is why when our kalpa ends, he goes to Sesha Sayan. And in the Shira Sayan, from his Nabhi Padma arises the future Brahma, the creator of the next governance. So we need the future of New Bengal. Thank you so much.
So, as you will see, I was not wrong about the kind of speech he would get. I said he would be an outstanding speaker, and he's more than proved me right. Okay, our next speaker is described as a public speaker and a theatre person with experience of theatre. I thought she would give a somewhat theatrical speech, but I think that ship has sailed. Sambit has already done that. But Saira, do what you can.
Good evening, Calcutta Club, Mr. Moderator, my fellow opponents, members of the House, and my dear friends of the Calcutta Club. I stand before you to speak against the motion that the status quo has been the unmaking of Bengal. So when I got this topic, I looked up what could be the meaning of status quo. Well, status quo is a Latin word that means the current situation as it is. Now, it is highly debatable what a status quo is and what a status quo can be like. A lot of people here in the lawns of the prestigious Calcutta Club might think that status quo would have been the year 1977-2011, where they imagined that West Bengal was a land of milk and honey, a period of pastoral progress, a period where industry flourished. A lot of people, on the other hand, might mean that status quo means the last 15 years rule of the Mamata regime. Now, let us address the elephant in the room, or rather, let's try and picture the blue and white coating outside Calcutta Club. Let me iterate, my dear friends, ladies and gentlemen of the Calcutta Club, that the current dispensation is only living in the house that the left built. You might call it status quo. I would call it stability. Now, a lot of people might feel that what did the left bring to the table? There was despair. There were a lot of brain drain. The industries were shutting shop. What did the left actually contribute to the table? Let me iterate here once again, that when the left gained power, it was a state that was hit by famine. It was a state that was still reeling with the ghosts of partition. Tell me, ladies and gentlemen, how easy it is to build a state brick by brick, mortar by mortar, when you have been given a legacy of famine, when you have been given a legacy of partition. Tell me how challenging it is to build a state brick by brick. I will tell you what it took. The left ensured that he gives land to the tiller. They knew that it is difficult to give land to every peasant, land to the people who toil the land, but at least they started implementing certain policies like Operation Barga. Now, people here might imagine Barga to be an Italian word, a very sophisticated word that perhaps mean something that you order from the menu table sitting somewhere in a pub or a cafe at Park Street. But let me tell you that the left implemented certain rules that ensured that at least the tiller on the ground who's mowing the fields, who's working hard, the peasants, they give some basic rights so that they don't have to ensure years and years of people who were actually ruling the roost, which were the feudal landlords. Now here, the opposition's favorite word is stagnation, of course. They claim that nothing moved in the villages. Well, something did move. 1.5 million sharecroppers moved from being semi-slaves of feudal lords to being masters of their own destiny, and that is what the left did through Operation Barga. My friends, like I said, will think that, oh, it was just a fancy word, probably an Italian word, but it was definitely much more than that. Now here, my opposition contestant was talking about Singur, Nandigram, and all of that, that was the only black picture that the left contributed. Let me ask you, ladies and gentlemen, the left contributed to land reforms, and Singur and Nandigram were not the complete unmaking of Bengal. They were the growing pains of a state trying to find a future for its youth. We didn't want to sell our soul to a corporation. We wanted to provide jobs for the sons and daughters of farmers that the current dispensation took away. But look at the hypocrisy of the critics. They blocked those very factories that actually rusted so many dreams of people who are aspiring for a better living, aspiring for better jobs. So what happened? That contributed to the brain drain that we are seeing today. And then let's go to the meat of the matter. Because what is the next alternative? The thought police? Or you want lynchers outside the door? Or probably someone to come and check in your fridge to see what meat you're eating for dinner? I think that is not the alternative we are looking at. Would you want somebody to come and morally police you if you're celebrating Valentine's Day outside the premises of the city? Or would you want someone to come and check what meat you're eating? Let me just audit your kitchen. Let me just audit your fridge, maybe. No, sorry, that is not the Bengal that we want. The Bengal that I've seen and that I'm proud of is an exemplary example of unity, of strength, of brotherhood, of peace and secularism. We did not invite rioters to West Bengal. Whether it was 1984 anti-Sikh riots, whether it was 2002 pogrom of Gujarat, the factories that we were trying to build here in West Bengal was gifted by Mr. Narendra Modi to Gujarat. The left did its best, whatever it could, to invite industries, to build the skyscrapers that you see, to see the land reforms that you see. We ensured that every child is given an education. So what if he doesn't own a startup? But at least he can be a think tank for tomorrow's future. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what is the maid that India wants? Are we looking at Orwellian times where vigilantism rules the roost and where there are people who are actually manning your thoughts? You could be arrested for lampooning a chief minister. You could be arrested for critiquing the government. No, this is not the democracy that West Bengal stood for. West Bengal has been the land of Tagore and Nazrul equally. And today we have that emblem of secularism and peace and amity. I'm giving a very small illustration, very small example. How many of you actually stand outside Nahum during Christmas? We have seen how Nahum, a confectionery new market, which is a relic of colonial times, actually has withstood different political climates, different ideologies, yet it stands tall because what does it symbolize? It symbolizes a Jewish bakery, and most of the workers and chefs are Muslims, and the lineup consists of Bengalis, which is Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Parsis, all of that. No, I do not want my Bengal to be erased from these vigilantes and rioters. I want Bengal to talk about, to take the industry and the villages together and not just talk about skyscrapers. I want Bengal to be an emblem of peace and harmony and be a symbol of today's times. I want people to say, yes, what Bengal brings to the table, the rest of the India follows tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at crossroads of deciding what kind of future we want to bequeath to our children. Do you want to bequeath a future where rioters rule the roost? Or do you want a future of amicable spaces for our children to thrive in? The decision is yours, and I very strongly oppose to the motion with every fiber of my being, because this is the only way to ensure our head is held high once again. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and I believe you too oppose today's motion.
Thank you, Saira. Our next speaker is a heavyweight in Bengal politics, and if things go as he plans and thinks they will, he'll probably be one of the most important people in the state very soon. Please welcome Samik Bhattacharya.
Thanking all of you. আমার ভাইয়ের রক্তে রাঙানো না, আমি 21শে ফেব্রুয়ারি বলবো না, আমি বলবো সেপ্টেম্বরের 20 তারিখ 2018 সাল। তাপস বর্মন রাজেশ সরকার তারা করজোড়ে আবেদন করেছিল মানুষের কাছে, শিক্ষকদের কাছে, প্রশাসনের কাছে যে আমরা উর্দু শিক্ষা নয়, আমরা স্কুলে বাংলা শিক্ষক চাই, কারণ বাংলার কোনো শিক্ষক আমাদের ক্লাসে নেই। সেই উত্তেজনা যখন এগিয়ে গেল তখন গুলি চলল, দুটি তরচাদা প্রাণ চলে গেল, আর তার পরিবার দুটি মৃতদেহকে এখনো বাড়ির সামনে চাপা দিয়ে রেখে দিয়েছেন বিচার পাবার অপেক্ষায়। Today's religion is democracy and today's politics is development. Very oftenly we are used to hear one slogan, China moder bullet car, Mamata di arekbar. We don't want bullet car. We don't want bullet train. We want Mamata Banerjee once again. Now, the bullet train is the beacon of progress, prosperity, and Mamata di quote-unquote stagnation. কে কি খাবে, কে কি পড়বে তা নিয়ে কত বিতর্ক চলছে পশ্চিমবাংলায়। কিন্তু what is the present scenario? We are importing a huge number of fish from the outside. আমরা চালে নয় মাছেও স্বয়ং সম্পূর্ণ হতে পারলাম না। 72 কোটি কেজি প্রতি বছর আমরা উগান্ডা এবং মরিটানিয়া থেকে, আফ্রিকার দুটো দেশ থেকে আমদানি করছি। আমরা বাঙালি, আমরা বিহার, ঝাড়খণ্ড, অন্ধ্রপ্রদেশ থেকে আমরা 15 কোটি কেজি আমদানি করছি পশ্চিমবঙ্গের মাটিতে আমাদের মাছ ভাতের স্বপ্ন পূরণ করবার জন্য। What is the present scenario in West Bengal? There was a change in 2011. The moment the government came into the power, the government has declared we are not supposed to acquire a single square feet of land. It is dead. And what happened actually? If any government doesn't have any comprehensive land policy, it is next to impossible to lure any investor in West Bengal. Flight of capital is everywhere. Exodus of merit, exodus of capital, exodus of labor. You just go to New Alipur, Salt Lake, Jodhpur Park, Gold Park, all are become old age home. Entire West Bengal is not old age home. সামান্যতম যাদের আর্থিক সঙ্গতি আছে তারাও উচ্চ মাধ্যমিকের পরে তাদের ছেলে মেয়েকে পশ্চিমবঙ্গের বাইরে পাঠিয়ে দিচ্ছেন। What is the present scenario? 14,62,000 literate boys and girls, they are working in Bengaluru. Right now, the second speaking language in Bengaluru is Bengali. This is our condition. What is about election? Election is ahead. Every Bengali is very much interested what is going on in this year. How many people will be vanished from the upcoming voter list? The answer is very simple. There is only one Dhritarashtra in Mahabharata. We find 7 Dhritarashtra in West Bengal voter list. This is our Bengal, Egiye Bangla. In our childhood, there is a very common narrative. It's an advertisement. Dadu khai, nati khai. Advertisement from a biscuit company. পশ্চিমবঙ্গের ভোটার লিস্টে দাদু আছে, বয়স 42, নাতি আছে, বয়স 22। এই মানুষগুলোকে একটা করে পদ্মশ্রী দেওয়া যায় না? আর এই যে বীর্যবান পুরুষরা আছেন তাদের একবার করে পদ্ম বিভূষণ দিয়ে দেওয়া যায় না? এটা নিয়ে আজকে এই সভাকে চিন্তা করতে হবে। আমরা তো বাঙালি, আমরা বাংলায় কথা বলি, কিন্তু কোন বাংলা, কোন রবীন্দ্রনাথ, কোন কাজী নজরুল, কোন বঙ্কিমচন্দ্র, কোন শরৎচন্দ্র, কোন নেতাজি সুভাষ বসু, রাসবিহারী বসু শিখিয়ে গেছেন যে উত্তর ভারতের মানুষ রাজস্থানের মানুষের দিকে তাকিয়ে বলতে হবে যে উত্তর ভারতের খৈনির থুতুতে আমরা কলকাতার লোহায় জং ধরতে দেব না। ইজ ইট ডিজায়ারেবল ইন এ সিভিলাইজ সোসাইটি? আপনাদের চিন্তা করতে হবে। এখন তো কে কোন ভাষায় কথা বলবে তার মধ্যে বিভাজন। হ্যাঁ, আমি একটা নির্দিষ্ট রাজনৈতিক দর্শনে বিশ্বাস করি। আমি মনে করি আমি প্রথমে একজন ভারতীয়, তারপরে একজন বাঙালি। কিন্তু আমি আমার বাঙালির যখন আমার লেখা গান পাঞ্জাব ও সিন্ধু, গুজরাট ও মারাঠা, দ্রাবিড় উৎকল বঙ্গ আমরা গাই, তখন মনে রাখতে হবে সিন্ধুর গোটাটাই নেই, পাঞ্জাবের অর্ধেকটা নেই, বাংলার অর্ধেকটা নেই। We have been facing a silent demographic invasion since mid-80s. It's an international conspiracy. ভারতীয় মুসলমানদের সঙ্গে কোথাও কোনো বিরোধ নেই, কিন্তু দুর্ভাগ্যের বিষয় তথাকথিত প্রগতিশীল লোকেরা, তথাকথিত ধর্মনিরপেক্ষ মানুষ যারা আছেন তারা ভুলে গেছেন যে এই মুহূর্তে বাংলাদেশে যে ঘটনা চলছে সেখানে শুধু হিন্দু আক্রান্ত নয়, মুক্তমনা মুসলমানরাও খুন হয়ে যাচ্ছে। প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে র্যাডিক্যালাইজেশনের। বাংলাদেশ ভুলে গেছে যে তাদের 30 লক্ষ মানুষ খুন হয়ে গিয়েছিল 70 এবং 71 সালে। যে শ্রীমতী গান্ধী জন্ম দিয়েছিলেন বাংলাদেশের, সেই শ্রীমতী গান্ধীর নামাঙ্কিত লাইব্রেরির 70,000 বইতে আগুন লাগিয়ে দেওয়া হয়েছে। অর্থাৎ যে মানসিকতা তক্ষশিলা ভেঙেছে, বিক্রমশিলা ভেঙেছে, নালন্দা ভেঙেছে, যারা সিটি অফ আলেকজান্ড্রিয়ার সবচেয়ে বড় বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়কে আগুন লাগিয়ে ধ্বংস করেছিল, সেই মানসিকতাই আজকে ওখানে ইন্দিরা গান্ধীর নামাঙ্কিত কালচারাল সেন্টারের বইতে আগুন লাগিয়েছে। আর সেই মানসিকতার মানুষরাই কিন্তু মুর্শিদাবাদে সেখানে তাদের নিজের প্রাইভেট টিউটরের সমস্ত লাইব্রেরিকে ভেঙে গুড়িয়ে দিয়েছে। আমি ইচ্ছা করে আমার মাতৃভাষায় কথা বলছি। আমার মাতৃভাষায় কথা বলছি এই কারণে আমার রাজ্য পশ্চিমবঙ্গ, মানে আমার বাংলা, এগিয়ে বাংলা। পশ্চিমবঙ্গের মানুষকে নতুন করে মনে রাখতে হবে 1946 সালের ক্যালকাটা কিলিংয়ের কথা। বাঙালি মুসলমানরা কার পাশে দাঁড়াবেন, কার সঙ্গে একাত্ম হবেন? এস ওয়াজেদ আলী, সৈয়দ মুস্তফা সিরাজ, সৈয়দ মুস্তফা আলী, এপিজে আব্দুল কালাম, কার পাশে দাঁড়াবেন? কাজী নজরুল ইসলামের সঙ্গে থাকবেন না টুকরে টুকরে গ্যাংয়ের আফজাল গুরুর সঙ্গে থাকবেন? আজকে সেটা নির্ধারিত করতে হবে। আক্রান্ত মানবতা। কলকাতায় কোথাও কোনো মোমবাতির মিছিল নেই। আমরা যখন ইথিওপিয়ায় মার্কিনী অবরোধ নিয়ে টালা থেকে টালিগঞ্জ পর্যন্ত পদযাত্রা দেখেছি, কিন্তু বাংলাদেশের এই হিন্দু নিধন যজ্ঞে আমরা কোনোদিন বালি থেকে বালিগঞ্জে কাউকে মোমবাতি হাতে নিয়ে দাঁড়াতে দেখিনি। আমি শুধু আপনাদের সামনে দু একটি কথা বলে আমার বক্তব্য শেষ করব। Political vendetta is the ultimate thing is now going on in West Bengal right now. West Bengal government is not ready to accept any central government's social welfare project. PM Vishwakarma for marginalized people, from artisans, from organized, unorganized sectors is not being implemented. PM Janman, the most vulnerable section of scheduled tribe community, before Lodha and Toto, they are not being benefited because of our Honorable Chief Minister. She is not ready to accept or implement this project in West Bengal. 43 railway projects are being stalled because of the land acquisition. Government doesn't have any comprehensive land acquisition policy. Bangla ke Gujarat hote debo na. Bangla ke Gujarat hote debo na. Jara bolchen Gujarater budget. What is the present scenario? Gujarat budget surplus is 27,000 crore and West Bengal deficit budget of 73,000 crore. বলছেন বাংলা দাঙ্গাবাজদের আমি আহ্বান করব, কি দাঙ্গা, কোথায় দাঙ্গা হচ্ছে? আজকে পশ্চিমবঙ্গের বিভিন্ন প্রান্তে স্কুলে সরস্বতী পূজা আটকে দেওয়া হয়েছে, পোস্টার মূর্তি পুজো বন্ধ করো। আমরা কি এই বাংলা চাই? আজকে বাঙালি তো নিশ্চিহ্ন হতে চলেছে। ডেমোগ্রাফিক চেঞ্জ তো ইনহ্যাবিটেবল। সল্টলেকের মধ্যে তাকান, এখানে বিদ্বজ্জনেরা বসে আছেন, জ্ঞানী গুণী মানুষরা বসে আছেন, আমাদের বাংলার গর্ব বোটানিক্যাল গার্ডেনের মধ্যে মসজিদ তৈরি হয়েছে। গুজরাটের সরকার সেখানে স্ট্যাচু অফ ইউনিটি উপহার দিয়েছে, আর পশ্চিমবঙ্গের সরকার আমাদের কলকাতায় গুলশান কলোনি উপহার দিয়েছে। এই সরকারের মধ্যে এটাই পার্থক্য। আমরা দ্রুততার সঙ্গে দৃঢ়তার সঙ্গে নিশ্চিত ধ্বংসের দিকে এগিয়ে চলেছি। আজকে এটাই পশ্চিমবঙ্গের ভবিতব্য। কোনো হিসাব নিকাশের করে লাভ নেই। চাল উৎপাদনে এখন আমরা 3 নম্বরে, আমাদের উপরে চলে গেছে এখন তেলেঙ্গানা। পশ্চিমবঙ্গকে যেটা একদম বর্ধমান জেলার রাইস বোল অফ ইন্ডিয়া বলে খ্যাত ছিল, আজকে তার এই করুণ দুর্দশার কারণ কি? কারণ হচ্ছে একটাই, মমতা দিয়ে আরেকবার গুজরাতেও সরকার একটা চলছে, ওখানে স্ট্যাগনেশন কিনা জানি না, কিন্তু সমস্ত পশ্চিমবঙ্গের মানুষ আজকে কোথায় আছেন? এখন জগন্নাথ দেবের রথের কথা বললেন, 1 মিনিট প্লিজ, 1 মিনিট মোর প্লিজ স্যার, উইথ ফোল্ডেড হ্যান্ড আই এম রিকোয়েস্টিং।
Go on.
Because my colleague chanted the name of Jagannath Dev. His authority is being challenged right now. আমাদের মুখ্যমন্ত্রী জগন্নাথ দেব বলছেন, পুরীতে বলছেন তুমি ওখানে কি করবে, তাকেও টেনে নিয়ে চলে আসা হয়েছে এখন দীঘায়। বাঙালি তো এগিয়ে আছেন, বাংলা ভাষাকে কেউ আপনি ক্ষতি করতে পারবে না। রবীন্দ্রনাথ গীতাঞ্জলি লিখেছিলেন, আমরা কথাঞ্জলি পেয়েছি। রবীন্দ্রনাথ গীতবিতান লিখেছিলেন, আমরা কবিতা বিতান পেয়েছি। রবীন্দ্রনাথ বিশ্বভারতী বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় দিয়েছিলেন আমাদের শান্তিনিকেতন, আমরা বিশ্ব বাংলা পেয়েছি। বাংলা এগিয়ে চলেছে, আমরা গর্বিত। নেতাজি সুভাষচন্দ্র বসুকে যদি কংগ্রেস থেকে বিতাড়িত না করা হতো, হয়তো ওই মানুষটার মধ্যে আমরা আরেকটা আব্রাহাম লিঙ্কনকে দেখতে পেতাম, যিনি দাঁড়িয়ে ওই জয় হিন্দ নিয়ে বলতেন, আই ডু নট বিলিভ ইন ওয়ান নেশন, আই বিলিভ ইন টু নেশন থিওরিতে আমি বিশ্বাস করি না, আই বিলিভ ইন ওয়ান নেশন। ভারতবর্ষ কোনোদিন ভাগ হতো না, এই বাংলা কোনোদিন ভাগ হতো না। দুর্ভাগ্যের এটাই, কিন্তু আবার কিছু এগিয়ে বাংলা তো অর্থনীতিও এগোচ্ছে, যার জন্য সুভাষ বোসের বাড়িতেও নাকি মানুষ কেউ একজন চলে গিয়েছিলেন, তারপরে টাকাটা পাননি বলে বলেছেন এটা কার বাড়ি এসেছো জানো, কে বলেছেন জানি না, পরিবারেরই মানুষজন, এটা কার বাড়ি জানো, ও সুভাষচন্দ্র বোসের বাড়ি, বলে সুভাষদাকে পাঠিয়ে দিন। এটাই বাংলা, এটাই বাংলার চিত্র, আমরা এর মধ্যেই আছি। ধন্যবাদ।
Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya. I think you may have swung it for your side. We'll wait and see. Jaideep Gupta speaking as the last speaker against the motion.
Thank you, Chairman. And please pardon my voice. I'm carrying a cup of hot water with me as a crutch.
Okay.
I'm fortunately the last speaker today, so I can say without the possibility of refutation that the speakers for the motion have addressed everything other than the motion. As far as the speakers for the motion are concerned, there is an election around the corner. There is a group of people in a lawn in Calcutta, and what better opportunity than to address them on issues other than what the debate is about. Calcutta Club debates are not meant for political dispensations. Calcutta Club debates have thoughtful topics and thoughtful speakers who try to stick to the issue. The problem of not sticking to the issue is that we have heard a brilliant rendition of Birendra Krishna Bhadra's Mahishasur Mardini. Now every time you recite it, and if you recite it well, as I must say, Mr. Sambit Patra recited it very well, every time you recite it, every Bengali will clap. You have therefore heard almost 2 minutes of Mahishasur Mardini today. Does it deal with status quo? Does it deal with the topic of the day? No. You have also heard repeatedly about the conditions across the border. Is that relevant? Because the debate seems to have confined itself to West Bengal. So that is not relevant. And in any event, there is nothing we can do debating the condition of Bangladesh in this lawn. And thirdly, the difficulty is that there are many things said which are factually perhaps not correct, but for which there is no politician here who can give a response. But I am a lawyer. I am fortunately able to give a response to the SIR debate which Mr. Sambit Patra started. He said that this extraordinary situation under Article 142 of the Constitution, where the Supreme Court of India had to entrust the job of electoral rolls to the final authority of judicial officers, is a triumph for him or for the ruling party of the nation. This I can answer, because under our law, it is the Election Commission who is the final authority for deciding the electoral roll. And because of what the Supreme Court has stated to be a trust deficit between the state of West Bengal and the Election Commission, he is compelled to use an extraordinary power which deprives the Election Commission of deciding what will be the electoral roll. It is an unfortunate situation on both sides, no doubt, but it is not something which can be put at the doorstep of one of the sides. This piece of information could not have been put to you because that's not the subject matter of this debate today. So, as lawyers tend to do, we pay attention to the issue in question. And the issue in question is not the present condition of West Bengal. The issue in question is whether status quo is responsible for the present condition of West Bengal. And if you don't answer that question, you will come to wrong conclusions. And if you come to wrong conclusions, then the unmaking of West Bengal will not be reversed. The unmaking of West Bengal will continue exactly as it is. But I am foreshadowing my comments. But let me jump into the debate straight away. Status quo is not the state of Bengal. Bengal is a state which believes in change. When you believe in change, you make changes. Sometimes the changes succeed and sometimes the changes fail. But if you get it wrong and if you say this is because of the status quo, then you will not address the real issue. Let me straight away deal with one aspect of this debate. There are many aspects. Has there been a status quo as far as the political movements of this state is concerned? Answer is no. The mother of all Indian political movements, the independence struggle, was germinated here. And it ended only with the departure of the British from India. It was a pioneering change which led to the collapse of colonial order across the world. Change. The next change was the Congress era of 1947 to 1977. Socialist politics, beginnings of land reform, setting up of modern Bengali cities by Mr. B.C. Ray, nation building in terms of the Durgapur steel plant and the DVC through 5-year plans, setting up of institutions like the IIT at Kharagpur and the ISI, is followed again by a change in 1969-71 by the violent insurgency in the form of the Nakshal movement, a peasant uprising and urban guerrilla warfare. Now it is true that those tactics destroyed the state's infrastructure, leading to economic stagnation. But it was a change which the people of Bengal participated in. Then comes the communist era, 1977 to 2011. Democratic communism, unheard of anywhere except in India. Successful initiation of agricultural reform in this state, but decline of industry and urban Bengal. Then 2011, the very word is poriborton, change. The overthrow of communism in West Bengal. Consequences are, we are too close to that event to be able to judge. Of course, my learned friends across the floor have judged it. And you may judge it, because you have to decide who to elect next time. But you are now being asked to go for another poriborton, now a poriborton which will take Bengal back 1,000 years to a civilization somewhat different to what Bengalis are used to. But you may decide to do it because you believe in change. You are not status quoists, and if you continue to debate that question, then you will come to the wrong conclusion that the reason for this present state of affairs is status quo. No, it is not status quo, it is change. But change can sometimes work and sometimes it doesn't work. And before I finish, I only want to point out that there is some aspects of status quo which are good. Rashogolla, tea, Robindra Sangeet, these are good aspects of status quo. If you throw it away along with the bath water, then that would be a complete disaster. You have your set of values. If you throw it away, then it would be a disaster. It is my fervent hope that the progressive liberal regime that has prevailed in this country, in this state, for more than 100 years, more than 150 years, should be the status quo. Now, how that status quo can be utilized to develop the state and to make it, or rather to unmake it, unmake the unmaking, that has to be debated, not whether status quo is the reason. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now we go into the next phase of the debate, which is the two team leaders stroke team captains rebutting what the other side has said. So let's start with Professor Bose. Let's see what you have to say. You have 5 minutes, by the way, Sheil.
Mr. Moderator, members of this august House, you will have to forgive us if we have been a little too professorial or a little too lawyerly. But I hope you will concede that there was substance in the arguments that we put forward. We directly addressed the motion before the House. And what we had from the other side was a brilliant exhibition of demagoguery, as if this was an election campaign. On our side, I think we have shown quite clearly that status quo is not responsible either for the making or the unmaking of Bengal. We have also looked at other states, as Abhirup has done, and demonstrated that there is no correlation and certainly no cause and effect between states which are anti-incumbent and states which continue with the same political party in power for a very long time, and whether they are economically prosperous or not. Saira was a refreshing voice because she even put out a stout defense of the long period of left-front rule. Of course, I have my criticisms of the left-front rule, especially what it did in the field of education, but she was right that there were progressive land reforms that were introduced in the early part of their regime. And also, let us not forget that when in 1984 there were terrible anti-Sikh pogroms in Delhi, Calcutta remained a haven for a beleaguered minority. When in 1992 and early 1993 there were terrible riots in Uttar Pradesh and Mumbai, Bengal maintained relative calm. Those were the days when my friend Swapan had converted from Trotskyism to Hindutva and was cheering on the vandals who tore down the Babri Masjid. Bengal's tradition meant that we took a different stand. I must also rebut some of the other speakers who came after me. Jisnu Basu provided his own interpretation of what happened in 1947. What I would say is that that is the one moment when we strayed from the path illuminated by Rabindranath Tagore and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. And the violence in Calcutta and Noakhali had so pulverized the Hindu, West Bengal Hindu upper classes that they decided to choose to break our motherland. That was truly the unmaking of Bengal. I welcome Sambit Patra from Orissa. I consider myself a half Oriya. My grandfather was born in Kotok. But again, I really have to say that if you accept the logic of the argument that he was making about West Bengal, then you would expect him, the champion of change versus status quo, to be the greatest supporter of the Jamaat-e-Islami on the other side of the border. But of course, he will not do that because he and the party that he represents only believes religious bigotry of one particular kind. Shomik Babu made a very fine speech, mostly in Bengali, but he ended with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. How, had he been here, he would have been able to prevent the partition of India and the partition of Bengal along religious lines. I entirely agree with him, but what he said in his conclusion is in complete contradiction to what Jisnu Basu said before him. How the Hindus of Bengal were able to save 1/3 of the state as a safe haven for the Hindus. In those days, 46% of the Hindus of undivided Bengal lived in East Bengal. And what did that decision mean? They either became helpless refugees who had to come to West Bengal, or they are now a very vulnerable minority in Bangladesh. Therefore, let me return to the thought with which I ended my opening address. We must be true to Bengal's heritage. We have not made a defense of any kind of a lesser evil. We have not from our side. All that we have said is that let the younger generation of Bengal build a new and better future for this state, but one that is rooted in the rich legacies of our history and the commitment that we have always had in the best Bengali political tradition to equality and unity, discrimination against none. Let me conclude with the words that I always used to hear from a great African-American leader who passed away just a few days ago, Jesse Jackson, who visited Bengal in 2014, and I had showed him round Netaji Bhavan, and he had written, Gandhi plus Bose equals liberation. He would always say, keep hope alive, never surrender. Be true to Bengal's heritage and throw out this motion which is steeped in pessimism and negativism. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Our final speaker of the day, summing up for the motion, Swapan Dasgupta.
Professor Sugata Bose is a fine historian. I had the privilege of serving with him in the consultative committee on external affairs in Parliament. So Parliament's loss is in fact history's gain. And I think he lived up to his reputation as a historian. His points of reference began with Raja Ram Mohan Roy, moved on to Ramakrishna Paramahansa, then went on to the Bengal Pact, and finally ended with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. It was a grand sweep of Bengal history, but it was a history that doesn't take into account the contemporary realities of what we face. There was no mention of the term Gherao. There was no mention of Shingur. There was no mention of Arjikar. This is the reality which we face today. Nor was there, among any of these speakers who opposed the motion, even the slightest mention of the fact that much of the younger generation of Bengal, on whom such a lot of faith is being reposed, have voted with their feet, bought one-way tickets out of the state, and are looking for better pastures, whether in Bangalore, Gurgaon, Mumbai, or even Manhattan. That is the grim reality of Bengal. That most people don't see a future for themselves in this state. Tell me, which family in the audience can say that we are all present, either in Kolkata or somewhere in West Bengal? Go to any of the high rises. And why is Kolkata become a grand retirement home? Why is it that it's become a great place for pensioners? That why the committee of Calcutta Club has to scour, which literally scrape the bottom of the barrel looking for younger members? And that's not a problem of Calcutta Club alone. That is the reality of Bengal. But on the face of it, Saira says that if you have an alternative, we won't be able to buy Nahum's cakes. I assure you that in a future, a Bengal which is economically vibrant can afford to have Christmas, will have Christmas, and will have many other festivals, perhaps with a slight devotional touch to it. It is said, Sugata said, I cheer on the vandals. He's entitled to say so. think it's important to note that what we are positing is not some horrific civilization which will take us back 1,000 years, as Jaideep would have us believe. It's important to remember that the accusation that if you have change, you will lose your Bangaliana. That it's better to live, as the great economist would have us believe, a land of equality. We haven't really declined. We've kept up the pace of low growth. That was the thing. That is the suggestion. Therefore, we should just continue with this. Plod along till we fall off the map of India. That is the future they hold for us. Rabindranath, I think, at one time was mindful of what could happen. He may have been prophetic when he uttered those words, Rekhecho Bangali kore manush koroni. Thank you very much.
Okay, they've asked me, the editors of the Telegraph have asked me to give my own views, and I have declined because I'm really an outsider, a visitor here. What I will say is that from the time I lived here, which was the dark days of the CPM, Calcutta now has got a lot better, lot richer. But has it got better in a good way? Could it have got even better? That's what this debate has ended up being about. It wasn't what it was supposed to be about. When they sent me the motion, they sent me a little note about the debate, and they said most states change governments every election. Bengal first had Jyoti Basu, now has Mamata Banerjee. Would we have done better in Bengal if he hadn't been such status quoists, if he'd kept changing governments? It was a good thought and an honorable thought, but not one person here has addressed that motion. So we won't argue about that. What we will argue about, what this debate has really ended up being, is a debate. It began sort of vaguely ideologically, but got more and more political. It's essentially a debate between the TMC, which unfortunately has no politician present, but has sympathizers, and the BJP, which of course is full of politicians in this panel. Now, the argument is this. Bengal, and this is historical, Bengal has traditionally voted for a charismatic figure who is a regional leader. I mean, Jyoti Basu was as much of a communist as Dhirubhai Ambani. He was essentially a guy who was loved by the Bengalis because he represented Bengali pride, Bengali honor, and the fact that he ran the state to the ground didn't seem to matter. Mamata Banerjee is similarly a charismatic leader who everybody enjoys because she embodies in some way Bengali pride. But is that enough? When I lived here, the Congress, which was a national party, made attempt after attempt, and it had fairly charismatic leaders, it made attempt after attempt to make a dent in Jyoti Basu's popularity and to win in Bengal. It never did. Now we're seeing the same thing with two different parties. You're seeing in the CPM role, the regional party, the TMC, and in the Congress role, the BJP, a national party, popular all over, many charismatic leaders at the national level, not so sure how many charismatic leaders in Bengal, but certainly a strong base. Now this side of the debate has argued that to vote for them is to approve of the progress Bengal has made. And this side has argued that there is no debate. All we've really got is appeasement of Muslims. To which this side has said, yes, we concede that there may be complaints about our governance, but we stand for the values that this country was founded on, which are the values of tolerance, secularism, and harmony. This side doesn't seem to think much of secularism, and as the TMC side has pointed out, their debate is essentially about the TMC's appeasement of Muslims, about the way in which Hindus have been treated badly. This, they say, this side says, is an affront to Bengal's tradition, and it's an outsider idea of trying to divide Bengal along religious lines. After all, nobody said this, but it's something I've always thought significant, that if you ask Bengalis outside of Bengal to name a great dish that comes out of Calcutta, they don't tell you it's kosha mangsho or any great Bengali dish. They say biryani. And the fact that every Bengali who's Hindu or Muslim claims biryani as his own tells you something about the culture of Calcutta. Now, has Mamata Banerjee exploited that culture? Has she exploited it to win votes, to appease minorities, to do a bad deal for Hindus? This side would say yes. That's essentially the debate we've had today. So I'm going to do two polls. I'm first going to ask you, if the election was held tomorrow, how many of you would vote for the BJP? Okay. Now I'm going to ask you the other side. If the election was held tomorrow, how many of you would vote for the TMC? Most people are not giving their opinions, but even so, the BJP is clearly ahead. Now I'm going to ask you to vote on the motion. I saw your votes earlier. I know what you're feeling. The motion is that the status quo has been the unmaking of Bengal. All those in favor, put your hands up. Okay. All those against? Okay. I think they've changed some minds, but not enough. The motion is passed. Thank you very much.